I'm 55 years old. I'm carrying my black gun. Got my black gun, which is interesting. Why is this black? Why do we call it a black gun? Is it because it's scary? Is it, and isn't it interesting, right? And then over there on the mountains, you can see some white snow. Is the white snow up there on the mountain because it's higher than everybody else and it's better? With these connotations that we put on the words white, black, how you have to be afraid of what you say. I mean, I don't know why this is called black. I don't know why that's called white. I suppose if it was the other way around, I don't know. Politically correct stuff is just going to kill all of us. You know what really helped me with racism? I grew up in a small community until I was 7 in Illinois with farm country. I don't know that we had any black families living around there. There wasn't a lot of people. I mean, it was rural Illinois in the 60s and early 70s before we left. So, and there was no racism in our house, so I really didn't know anything about it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching my videos from. Welcome back to my YouTube space. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are going to talk about race. What is race? How did it come to be? And why is there race, or how race is affecting black people or white people at large? Now, the video I'm going to react today is for Coffee with Vantes. That's how I've get him, Coffee with Vantes. And he is a white guy talking about race, saying that when he grew up, he didn't know anything about racism. He didn't know whether black or white. He was just there. But when he grew up, he knew about race and everything. Now, race is a social construct used to categorize a group of people based on physical characteristics, most commonly skin color, facial features, and hair texture. Through it is often assumed to be biological. There is no scientific basis for dividing humans into distinct races, as genetics differences within any race are often greater than different between races. Historically, race has been used to justify systems of powers, colonization, slavery, and social hierarchies. In modern times, it still affects people's identities, experiences, and how they are treated in society. It's evident that people are treated differently according to their own race. Whether you are white or black, there's a way you are being treated. If you are black in a white space, there's a way you are being treated. If you are white in a black space, there's a way you are being treated. And one group is being treated with a lot of care. They're so fragile, let me say like that. But the other group, it is just treated as a group. Now, let's watch this clip from Coffee with Vantes, and then we'll come back here and talk about it.
I want to talk about race. Let's talk about race. My gosh, isn't that like the big thing right now? Isn't it always the big thing, race? So interesting. I mean, really, if you think of the word race, right, and what I'm talking about is the human race and all the different races, right, which some we label by their countries, other we label by the color of their skin. Interesting. But think of the word race, right? What is a race? What is a race, right? It's a bunch of people competing for somebody to be the best. It's kind of interesting, right? Because when we talk about race, racism, racists, and then we look at the term of race being about everybody competing for somebody to be the best, it's kind of maybe we should change that term. I'm just kidding. I don't want to change the term. It's fine with me. But what that leads to is this politically correct climate that's just killing everything. Racism is a terrible thing. It's just ignorance and hatred. But you know what? You can justify it. You can. And being angry at each other, let's choose white and black because, of course, that's the big thing, white and black. It's the big difference, I guess, because it's the most different in color. I mean, you got to forgive me. The whole race thing has always just really bothered me. So I came from a family where there was no racism. I'm a white guy. If you can't tell, I'm a white guy. I came from a white family. I was born in Illinois, and then we moved to Nevada, to Las Vegas, and I spent most of my life there. But there was no racism in our house. There was no N-word in our house. It's just not the way it was. And That's how it is here. You know, I raised my son to be kind and to be generous and to be thoughtful of people. And I guess we're more renowned for the fact that I teach him how to not let bad people get away with things, you know. But this race thing, you know, it's only going to get solved by people talking. I mean, these riots, it's sickening. It's just, you know, it's interesting. I didn't make many comments on the Minnesota issue. Number one, because, you know, when I first looked at it, the video is disturbing, there's no doubt. But I also think that it wouldn't make any sense for police officers to intentionally kill somebody in broad daylight while they're being videoed. That's just common sense to me. Especially when people are saying, hey, the guy can't breathe, he's saying he can't breathe. Something about that just absolutely makes no sense. And I'm not the conspiracy theorist guy. I'm not. But I didn't say anything because, you know, I'm an analyst. I analyze things when I watch that. That guy was already dead by the time I saw the video. There was no urgency to make a quick decision. And I watched people make quick decisions all over the place. I mean, regardless of what you feel about it, if you really analyze that scenario, there's a lot to it that I just don't think that the end result that people think is going to come out of that, I don't think it's going to be what people think. I think there's a lot of factors in what happened there, regardless of the fact that it involved the police, regardless of the fact that it involved a white and a black man, or actually I think it's a white and Asian, maybe two whites and an Asian, or a white and Asian, and a mixed individual as an officer and a black man. I mean, there was seemingly possibly a lot of races, you know, I don't know. But you know, if you look at all the details of that incident, there's just a lot there that's telling. It's not cut and dried. It's not I don't think it was done on purpose. It doesn't make sense. I mean, anybody that had common sense wouldn't kill somebody in broad daylight while being videoed and have a look on their face like they weren't thinking they were doing anything wrong. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about race. How are we going to get better with race? You know, I want to tell you, I'm 55 years old. I'm carrying my black gun. Got my black gun, which is interesting. Why is this black? Why do we call it a black gun? Is it because it's scary? Is it, and you know, isn't it interesting, right? And then over there on the mountains, you can see some white snow. Is the white snow up there on the mountain because it's higher than everybody else and it's better? You know, with these connotations that we put on the words white, black, how you have to be afraid of what you say. I mean, I don't know why this is called black. I don't know why that's called white. I suppose if it was the other way around, I don't know. You know, politically correct stuff is just going to kill all of us. You know what really helped me with racism? I grew up in a small community until I was 7 in Illinois with farm country. I don't know that we had any black families living around there. There wasn't a lot of people. I mean, it was rural Illinois in the 60s and early 70s before we left. So, and you know, there was no racism in our house, so I really didn't know anything about it. And then when we moved to Las Vegas, I love old music, always loved old music, 50s, 60s, you know, and now as I get older, I guess the 80s is old, you know, but 80s, yeah, not so much. Some of it I like, but 50s and 60s. And, you know, one of my greatest artists that I enjoyed the most was Sam Cooke. And Sam Cooke is a black man. And I think it's interesting. I love Sam Cooke's music. My God, I still play it. I love Sam Cooke's music. It's beautiful. And I don't remember how long it's been. It's been so long now, but I don't think I knew that he was black when I was listening to his music for a long time. It didn't really make any difference if he was white or black to me. But when I look at the fact of what was it, I guess that besides the fact that I had great parents and racism wasn't in our house, but was it that really secured the fact that there's really no difference between white and blacks? I mean, there are some differences. It seems like you got to be careful, right? Because I can insult people. It seems like white and blacks, maybe we have our favorite food, or we may have our favorite different types of music likes, and that's not completely true. But you know what I mean? We can kind of look at each other. We have some differences, you know, and that's okay. because differences are great, right? I don't want to live in a one world order. I don't want to go to China if I ever go there and just eat McDonald's. I want to eat Chinese food made by Chinese people and hear their language and see the difference in their culture. It's the beauty of traveling. The idea that we're different is beautiful. I love that. You know, I've been to some great countries. I have friends around the world. You know, I've known a lot of people. I have a lot of acquaintances and a lot of people that I would call friends. But this race thing, the other thing was in 1986 when I joined the police department, guy sat right next to me. He's a black guy. And I'm trying to start another channel all about race with him because he's brilliant. I love him, and we've been friends for 34 years, and he's just one of the most principled, awesome guys I've ever known in my life. And he just won't get on social media, and it's a damn shame because we could do some beautiful things for race relations. And I sure wish he would do that with me. But he's a beautiful guy. We are 15 days apart. I was born 15 days earlier than him. He was very close to his parents, so was I. We both talked to each other and cried to each other when our parents died. We're both principled men. We defended each other, watched each other's backs with guns for a long time. But I'll admit, you know, I remember the first time I went over to, when we were in the police academy, I went over to, I think, his mother and father's house, and that was the first time I sat in a room of all black people and me. And they were great. But I have to admit, it felt a little odd. It felt a little different, even though everybody was great and friendly and awesome. So just that little bit gave me a perspective of what it would be like to be somewhere where you're the minority. You know, nobody treated me bad. Everybody was awesome, great people. I know his closest family. I know the vast majority of them. But the fact that he's just an incredible guy and he's black, you know what? If that doesn't confirm to you that racism is just to hate somebody for a race is nonsense, you know. And we did a lot of things together, and you know, we all have our stories treated different for race. Even as a white guy, you know, I stop somebody as a white policeman and I'm a racist automatically. I can't even talk about race issues because I was a policeman and I support the cops. I do. And anybody that would say, you know, wants to talk about, oh, you support the bad ones, that's so stupid. That's like, you know what, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor and I support doctors. Oh, well, what about the doctors what about that? Or I'm a carpenter. Oh, carpenters, you know, a lot of them do drugs and stuff. And I mean, could you imagine is that where we're really going in this country? It really is kind of where we're going in this country unless all of us come together that are like, yeah, we're way beyond the whole race division, all this nonsense. I'm not saying that racism isn't real. It is real. Listen, prejudice is real. And honestly, inherently, I don't believe that it's a bad thing. Now, hear me out before you get all mad at me. But the idea that there is no prejudice, everybody's prejudiced. It's like you don't judge people. Everybody judges people. You know what I mean? Because we see somebody that's different than us, and right away we're like, wow, they're different. And we do that with color. We do that with clothing style. We do that with language. I mean, I think the greatest thing that could happen to our world would be to be attacked by aliens that looked really weird. And I don't know, maybe they were opaque. Then they wouldn't be a color. I guess it wouldn't matter that they were a different color, or if they were black, or if they were white, or if whatever color they were, because they'd be so different than us. And right away, right, we'd be like, whoa, they're different than us. And that's because we're prejudiced, because it's just inherent in us to look at somebody different and right away feel a little different, but then scope them out. So prejudice, I believe, is a natural thing, but it's acting on it. It's hating. It's hating somebody, judging them by the color of their skin, or their language, or where they live. I mean, let's face it, right? When we get mad, when another country does something and media pushes it, like we know, you watch I don't know, let's just pick on Iran for a second, and the Iranians walk around with the flag, and they burn an American flag, and there's like 20 guys there, or maybe there's 40 guys there, and they're chanting something, none of us know what they're saying. They could be like, help, we're being held hostage, and we got to burn this flag, or we're going to be killed. We don't know, but we see that, we're like, that's our flag, we get all mad, and then we hate all Iranians, right? Isn't it the truth? It's what we do, all of us. I mean, you know, it's so interesting. I remember one time when I worked a lot in the lower income black side of town as a policeman for the first part of my career. And I remember one time, I can't remember which, I think it was Iraq. We were in Iraq at the time and we had just started. And it was really interesting. I had two young black gangbangers sitting in the front of my car. I knew I worked in that neighborhood predominantly, knew who the bad guys were. Then I worked gangs. You get to know who the good and bad people are. And but anyway, we found common ground. I mean, these guys and I were talking about, man, we all supported our military. It was beautiful. We supported our military, but these black gangbangers and this white cop. It was beautiful. This country is so beautiful. The people in it are so beautiful. This hatred, we're being misled. We just are. When I saw the thing that happened in Minnesota, beyond the video, what I hated most was I knew the way it was depicted, especially when I finally started looking at all the videos and I realized that it was putting out a false narrative. It just was. There's no doubt that man died, and it's a terrible video. And I honestly don't know why the officer stayed on them so long. I do believe that it's going to be shown that there was a need for him to sit on him or kneel on him and the other officers, but I just don't know why he stayed so long. It's pretty obvious it's a terrible mistake because that guy died. But, we only come together by finding common ground. And, I need to tell another story. I could tell a lot of stories about race. I'm thankful for me because God's been in my life. The vast majority of them always ended up good. I remember one time when I worked in the project area. This is going to be a little bit of a long video, so I hope people like it, because, I'm kind of funny looking. But I worked foot patrol in this neighborhood that there was 2 shootings every night. So we bulletproofed the windows, and we put a team of officers that worked foot patrol there and drove around there. And I got to know those people in there. And I learned a great deal. Anyway, there was a neighboring neighborhood right next door, and I would walk over there too. It was just really a heavily gang-infested area. And as I walked up the road one day, there was a Mustang sitting in the parking lot. Now, I love Mustangs, even though if I were to get back into muscle cars, listen, the Corvettes just stomp the Mustangs. I'm sorry, but I love Mustangs too. But I love old Mustangs. And there was an old Mustang in the driveway. And as I was walking by in my patrol uniform, there was a guy. He was black. It was a predominantly black neighborhood. And he happened to come out. And I walked towards him. And I could tell when he looked at me, that he wasn't comfortable, that he was looking kind of grumpy in his face, and I don't really remember how the conversation started initially because it's been a long time, but he was very like, oh, what are you doing here? I'm just in my yard or whatever. But he didn't say that. It's just a feeling. And I said, maybe he said something like, hi, can I help you? Or do you need something? Or was something wrong or something? And I said, no, man, I just love that car. And man, he just saw his face change. And then we spent 20 minutes talking about the car and what I loved about him, the type of wheels that came on him, and I looked at the interior, and it was beautiful, right? But then in the conversation, he ended up bringing up that he didn't have any auto insurance. Now in Nevada at the time, and it probably still is now, it's mandatory to have auto insurance. You get a ticket, you pay a lot of money, you got to get insurance anyway, then your insurance is really high, and it's a nightmare. Really, it's a nightmare. But I don't want to go there. But what's really interesting? I said, dude, I love this car. And you're going to be driving on the road someday without insurance, and some dummy's going to run into you, and you ain't going to have the money to fix it. And this thing's going to end up in the junkyard. About 2 weeks later, I didn't think anything about it. We were talking and had a great conversation. We were just 2 guys that loved Mustangs. Race had nothing to do with anything. About 2 weeks later, he showed up at the little police station where I worked, and the little... it was an apartment with bulletproof windows, and we leave the door open in the daytime, and he came walking into me, and he had proof of insurance, and he thanked me, and he said, you know what, you're right, man. It's really sad because at the time I was young, and I was focused on criminals, and I didn't realize how important that was for relationships. I don't think I ever talked to that guy ever again. He never talked to me. I never talked to him. But what a beautiful encounter that was, and I hope it was for him too. It's so interesting. There was a woman there, a little scrawny little black woman. I even remember her name, but I guess I won't say it on here. She had about 5 or 6 kids, and she was Oh, she was crazy and rowdy and angry all the time. She's probably about 30. I think she had 5 or 6 kids. Her kids were always in trouble, you know. She wasn't a very responsible mother. She was angry but as the longer I was there, finally one day she came in to complain to me about a police officer. And apparently there was a new white police officer that had yelled at one of her kids. And in her conversation with me, she said, you know, I actually got a moniker there. The gang members named me Moon Dog. If you remember in those days, McDonald's used to have that Mac Moon, so they made fun of my chin, so they named me Moon Dog. So that's what everybody called me there, was Moon. So she says, you know, Moon, I don't like this. Who is this white officer comes in here talking to my kid like that? He says, like, I know you. I know you. If one of my kids gets out of line, you can smack him. I understand it. And then the conversation went on and on and on. But you know what? I'll never forget about that part of the conversation. Because here was this woman that I know was involved in nefarious activities, who utilized her children to do some of the bad things they did, carrying dope and things like that. It's terrible. But she identified with me all of a sudden. It didn't matter that she was black and I was white. I was a cop and she was a criminal. But now she said, listen, I don't like these people I don't know doing this, but if you smack one of my kids, this guy didn't smack anybody, he just talked to her kid, was mad at him, yelled at him or something, I don't even remember. But she said, if you want to smack him, I understand. You know what's interesting? Isn't that interesting? She identified with me. Maybe she trusted me. Apparently it must have been a trust issue. But where did that come from? It come from relationship. And that's what we all need, is relationships. Listen, there's a lot of people on the Vantac Nation page, and I see now that we've gone over 150,000 followers, which that's cool. I don't know what that really means. I don't know how many people support the page or hate the page. You know, the world is such a crazy place. I can say something like to make the black gun comment or the white snow comment and throw some connotation to it, and people can get mad. But don't we want to stop getting mad? God knows I do. I'm 55 years old. I'm tired. You know, that's why I live where I live. I'm just tired of arguing with people. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good people. And what's really interesting to me is there's a lot of people that make bad decisions that, you know what? They're good people. I mean, I arrested some criminals that were funny as hell. And I'm like, oh my God, I could be friends with this guy. But of course, you can't be friends with a felon as a police officer. It violates policy. And I'm sure they wrote a policy like that because, you know, they don't want you to be friends with a drug cartel guy because you're probably going to do something wrong, or at least people will think you are. So, but I loved being a policeman. I love everything about it. It did everything great for me in race relations. But you know what's interesting? My good friend, you know, one of my 2 best friends, I have 2 best friends. One's white, one's black. So 50% of my best friends are black. So come on, man, I know everything about black people. I'm just kidding. But anyway, when we were in SWAT, we spent the last 9 years together in our career in SWAT. We were partners. And if there was no search warrants or call-outs or emergencies or something like that, you know, SWAT guys would just drive around in our unmarked vehicles. So one night, my partner actually had taken the night off. I don't know how. He was the healthiest individual in the world. I don't know what was going on with him. Maybe he had a cold or something. I don't know. So I was driving around by myself. And I was on Fremont Street, if you know Las Vegas. And I had just bought a new Corvette. Hey, I'm sorry, man, Mustang guys. I love the new Mustangs. They're pretty cool, but the Vets are just awesome. So I had just gotten this new Z06 Corvette. I think it was, I don't know, somewhere around 2002, somewhere around there. And I'm on Fremont Street, and I see another brand new Z06 Corvette. It's exactly the same as mine, except it's black and mine is gray. And so I'm just checking it out, looking at it. Well, I notice on the back there's no license plates, and there's not even a temporary tag. Well, seeing that I just bought my car just a few weeks before, I know there's a temporary tag that they give you and they put on the car. So I thought, well, that's interesting, but there's no tags on that. So I stopped it. So I stopped this car, and as I walk up to it, there's a black couple in there. A black man driving and a black woman in the passenger seat. Nice looking people, well dressed, very articulate. But I could just feel this incredible attitude. Why are you stopping me? And I mean, I don't really remember because it's been a long time, but we had a little bit of dialogue. I had no reason to be upset with anybody. I was just going to ask them. I mean, it was obvious to me that these people did not steal this car. So I was just going to say, hey, I think your temporary blew off. Well, before I even got a chance to do that, this guy says, you just stopped me because I'm black. And I just stood there for a minute, And then he must have thought I was kind of crazy because I just got a big smile on my face and I chuckled. And I said, you caught me in a weird night because my partner and my wonderful best friend is not here tonight. He's off sick. And I wish he was here to hear you say that because he's as black as you are. And that's not true. And then we started a little bit of a dialogue. And guess what? He was an IRS agent. And then when I told him my concerns and the fact that I had just bought the same car and I explained to him why I stopped him, he really mellowed out. And then he apologized. And he should have, Usually when people apologize, they say, oh, no. But he should have. I don't think I said no. Because, it's not cool. It's hard for me to take racist comments. When people infer that I'm a racist, it really bothers me. I'm not going to go through my entire career of all the things I did for people that were good. But I did a lot of good things for any race. I risked my life. Listen, that neighborhood I worked in, I talked about where we put the bulletproof windows in there, I've been ambushed twice in my life. Do you know what? Both of them were in that neighborhood. You know who I was protecting in that neighborhood? It was a majority black neighborhood. I was protecting black people of goodwill and anybody else that lived there. And that's what policemen do. But it's hard for me to take when somebody infers that I'm a racist, because I'm not. I spent my whole life I didn't live in that. I wasn't born like that. I wasn't raised like that. I don't raise my son like that. And it bothers me when people say that to me, because that cuts me to the core, because that is not true. And we have to stop it. We just have to stop it. Listen, when I think at one point in the video I had talked about how racism can be justified, yet it's still sheer ignorance. But how can it be justified? If you're a black man that lives in a predominantly black neighborhood and the only white people you see are police officers, and even if you're not doing anything wrong, which is totally possible, but you get mixed in, maybe you hang out with some kids from the neighborhood, but they're troublemakers, so you get thrown into that. So they pull up on gangbangers that may sometimes have guns, they sell drugs, and you're sitting there with them or talking to them. You might get patted down. You might get talked to like you're one of them because it appears that you are, even though you're not. That's why you don't hang out with bad people. But if you're black and your only experiences with white are bad or perceived as bad, then you have the right to feel prejudice and feel a little racist towards whites. And it's the same thing if you lived in a predominantly white neighborhood and your only dealings with blacks was bad. Maybe black policemen. I don't know if there's much of that I've lived on the West Coast most of my life, so maybe on the East Coast there is something like that predominantly. And say that black policemen, you hung around with some kids that were no good, same story. If you get treated poorly by another race, and then we feed on things, right? And then you get justified. You get other people that feel like that, and all of a sudden you feel justified in it. And the next thing you know, you're making a stupid decision, and you're treating somebody completely poorly because of their skin color, only to find out that they're really a great human being, like the guy with the Mustang, and actually the nice-looking couple who had just bought a beautiful new Corvette. And even the woman I knew from the ghetto who was a drug dealer and was a horrible mother and probably had a horrible mother. But inside, I could see the good. There is good in all of us. And suddenly, we can have these huge differences. And you know how we bring it together? We don't bring it together by yelling at each other, throwing rocks at each other, demanding people to get on their knees, telling people they owe you, that your race is better, or that I'm part of a race that's done bad things. I mean, disregard facts and just be stupid. Because really, race, interesting. Running, race, competing. Is that what we're doing? I don't think that's what we're doing, but that's what we call ourselves. Man, God is great. He's been in my life for a long time, and he made me a great cop. Cops focus on putting bad guys away, and sometimes it can get tainted when you're just looking for evidence to put somebody away. But a great cop, I find it hard to believe, And I don't mean to insult people, but without God in my life, I'd be a very different person. But people come together by just talking. If you want to keep a hard head, if you're a white racist or a black racist or an Asian racist or whatever, though, if you hate somebody for race, you're wrong. Your perception of truth is justified if you've been treated poorly by people of another race. But to treat us all the same is wrong. To treat a profession, everybody in a profession is bad because some people on it are wrong, regardless of the profession. I mean, imagine being, I don't know, anything. Imagine being, I don't even know if there might be a professional title, forgive me, I don't know, but imagine being a trash man, a garbage man, a guy who rides on the back of a garbage truck. Say that you did that for 25 years, and then, I don't know anything about garbage men, honestly, about the profession or anything, but say that every time you talked, oh yeah, I was in the sanitation, I worked sanitation 25 years and I loved it. And then all the people ever brought up to you was how they knew a sanitation worker that was a criminal or a drug addict or had a bad attitude, or how would that make you feel? I mean, 25 years you did that. You put your life, your heart and soul into that. You were always kind to people. You did good things for people. And then every time you brought it up, you don't even want to bring it up anymore because a whole bunch of people just go right to some kind of negative aspect of it that has nothing to do with you. It's not right. It's not right. Racism affects everybody. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, everybody. But isn't it the different things about us that really make us so beautiful? That's why I moved here. Look at this. This is beautiful. I lived in Vegas for almost 40 years, man. But there's beautiful things about that too. I'm getting to be an old man and I like this better.
Welcome back. You have heard him. He has talked a lot about race, and let me just add something on it because I'm going to act how white people are benefiting from race and specific systems where whiteness tend to be advantaged historically and in the present. For example, these benefits are structural, meaning they're built into how societies function, not just about personal prejudice. Historical foundation in many Western countries, especially in the US, white families were allowed to own land, receive bank loans, and inherit wealth centuries before people of color could. In today's days, white families in the US still hold 6 to 10 times more wealth on average than black families. These affect education, home ownership, and business opportunities. And the reason why this happened is because for you to have that power, for you to be stronger and to be in power for so long, you need to have access to wealth and the economic system. You have to control economic system. You have to control wealth. Wealth is power. Money is power, and that's why you see there is different wealth gap between whites and blacks, and it was created back then. And white people knew this is the only way, and that's why they took massive, large tracts of lands from black people. For example, here in Africa, white people knew that land ownership is the only thing they can use to control black people, and they took lands, they took large tracts of land, and taking large tracts of lands, that means that you are going to control food. That means where hospitals, schools are being built, it's in your land. Where road is passing, it's in your land. So you will control like 90% of the country if you own big tracts of land. The wealth gap between black and white people is affecting black people up to now and benefiting white people. Black people are still struggling with the home ownership, are still struggling with running businesses, are still struggling with the education, but white people are getting it easy. So it was a long con. I always say, white people, they played something we call a long con. Things that will come to affect even in 2025, even in 2030, 2040, 2060. These things will still benefit them. And this, for example, if black people don't wake up, they will be on top for so long because they own economic system, they own political system, they own everything. Okay. Schools in white majority areas tend to be better funded due to properly taxes and political prioritization, and that is the benefit of race. White people, their schools were built well, funds were allocated to their schools, they were, their education was quality to them, and the curriculum often centers white history and perspective, while marginalized or black or indigenous or other non-white histories. White people got it easy just because of race. But how did this race started? Back then, I've read history videos, I've seen videos and read books. Back then, there was nothing like white people. The white people was created. The whiteness was created because of the skin color. And few rich white people sit down and decide to create that whiteness. And they said black is inferior, black is bad, and white is good. If you are brown, you are better off. It's better you be brown than be black. And they associated black with sickness, black with poverty, black with anything that's bad. They associated black with inferiority. But white people were associated by good things. White collar jobs, white books, white cloud, white something. But black was associated by anything that is bad. Black book, black, everything bad, it's black. And the white people or white students or schools with only white, they were treated differently. The only white towns is being treated differently. Sometimes I ask myself, is it because they are that fragile? I have a lot of questions that I'm asking myself. Why white people are being taken care of so good, and why black people are being carried as inferior? And I came to notice that black people are being feared. They fear black people so much. They are scared of black people so much. And they know that if they give black people small opportunity, they will take over. And when they take over, white people will never come back to fill that gap. And that's why they created something that called race. White people, black people. They started dividing us with our own races. They started creating these stories of white people being the top priority and black people being the last, And the race has created something like policing. White people are statistically less likely to be stopped, searched, or arrested for the same crime. Black people are more likely to be charged or receive harsher sentences. White defendants may receive more lenient plea deals and less prison time than people of color for similar crimes. And that is a continuation to show you that black people are not allowed in our society, and we are only allowing white people as the only human beings. Black people can do mistakes. White people cannot do mistakes. Even if he has done that mistake, they will just find a way to say maybe his mind is not okay and everything. White patients often receive better care. Studies show that black patients' pain is taken less seriously, and maternal mortality is far higher than for black women. Neighborhood segregation has left communities of color with less access to clean air, good hospitals, or healthy food, while white neighborhoods often enjoy these as default. And what they are enjoying is the sweat and blood of black people, because all of these things that white people are enjoying, it was built or came from black people, because when you talk about the economic stability in the white countries, most of them, and they're stabilizing their economy through Africa. They are using Africa resources, and how are they getting these resources? They are exploiting it. They are getting it like in the cheapest way. So they are using that resources to build their economy, a thing that black cannot do. They always say we cannot continue to blame white people for our own mistakes, but again, the white system is still keeping measures, and they are still there trying to see how black people can never benefit from their own resources. Black Americans have struggled for the white America. They have fight for America. They have built the American economy. They have, they have done everything for America, but they can never get that priority. The priority is only given to white people. And there's a video I saw, a white lady saying that she grew up just knowing black people are meant to work for white people, to work for them. She never imagined that a black person can be in the same school with her. She can pass, get that numbers. Whenever she see a black lady winning, she was feeling bad. So it is something that shows me that when some white people were growing up, some of them, they were taught that they are the only people in the face of the earth, and these other people are just passing by, or they are just there, mates and everything. But come to think of it, whoever created race had a lot of mind. Because how come you created this whiteness, you created this race, the difference between these groups, and decades after decades, it is still controlling? I wonder. And white people hold a majority of leadership role in governments, for example, in America, corporation, universities, and media outlet in Western societies. Policies are more likely to reflect white middle-class priorities, while issues facing communities of color are under-addressed or ignored just because of race. So race plays a vital mode in the life of a human being right now. Like if you are white, there is a way you are being treated. You are getting it easy movement, freedom of speech and everything. But if you are black, you're not getting those freedoms. And the only way to keep black people down is to continue deepening the race issue. The only way to keep black people on this verge of poverty and everything is to continue teaching about race. Let's tell our white people that you are better race than the other. Let's tell brown people that you are at least than the black people. Black people are here to suffer and everything. And the brown people, other races, white people, middle class, and poor white people, they are being filled with this narrative and stereotypes about black people. So they grew up knowing that black people are different, and everything bad is being given to black, and name black. So we need to talk about race. And our generation right now, and the generation we have, the black youth and everyone needs to know what's going on, how this thing started, and how we are going to end this. We are going to end these race issues by only uniting. Let's unite as black people, because unity will only create our strengthness. If we don't unite, it will cause our division. But the only way is to unite, have this strength. They always fear the strength of black people. That's one thing you need to know. The strength or the unity of black people scares them, because when you become united, when you talk together, when you walk together, you become more strength. It's easier to defeat one person than to defeat 5 people. So when we work together as 5 people, we become more strong than when you work as a single person. So as black people, we need to come out. We need to know what you're trying to do here. We are trying not to steal, not to try to win something, but to take back what belongs to us. Tell me what you think on the comment section about this video. The white guy has talked it all about race, and I don't know what you say. Until next episode, peace out.